Welcome to the lawsuit of Skills Platform versus Papaya Gaming. So this lawsuit is between Skills, a competitive esports betting platform, and Papaya, who created Solitaire Cash. Yeah, this was officially filed in October, but this is an ongoing case that actually has been going on since at least June. Oh, there it is. Okay, dated October 27th. There's a future hearing for the conclusion of this, which I'm sure that we'll find inside of this document. Okay, so these are 35 pages of a transcript of basically the minutes of the court hearing. And so I'm just gonna go through because there are so many details in here that are absolutely absurd. And if anyone is still playing Solitaire Cash, they need to stop. They need to quit. And actually, there is another lawsuit that opened recently, probably as a result of the other one, where it is the people versus Papaya. And it is a class action lawsuit, which they are attempting to get $15 million out of Papaya, essentially recouping hundreds of millions of dollars that users have mistakenly put into a gambling app when they thought that they were competing. So that's kind of insane, but let's go into the details here. Okay, so Skills, some old company from 2012, they are classified as a real money skill-based mobile game. It's called RMSB. And this allegedly is what Papaya has tried to call their games as well. They're real money, skill-based, and the skill is the important part in that phrase. And essentially the complaint that Skills now is bringing to Papaya as a direct competitor is that Papaya is not actually a competitor legitimately because they are not actually using fair and skill-based representation. So Papaya states themselves that they are not considered gambling. The outcome of tournaments are supposed to be based on skill of players rather than luck or chance. This is the point that Skills is saying, is that Papaya is lying, that they are doing fraudulent activities. Okay, so there's a lot of details in here that basically go into Papaya claims, Papaya lies. As a summary of the entire hearing so far, it is undisputed that Papaya used bots in its games from 2019 until at least November 2023. It could be very well going on past that up until current day. And I would say that it likely is. But we know that they did it from 2019 until 2 years ago. And now, knowing that they employed two types of bot, liquidity bots and tailored bots, I just think it's very likely if you've been doing it for 5 years and you didn't get caught during that period, you probably would have kept going until now. So liquidity bots are just like bot players that fill in empty user slots. This is to ensure a smooth experience for the player. In their words, so that it won't stay open for too long. Now, if you think about this from a business perspective, if you're making money based on how many tournaments close, because you only get your cut once a player finishes a tournament, then it's in your best interest, in your monetary interest, to have more tournaments more often, because every tournament you're taking like a 50% cut. So even if there aren't enough players, you're going to throw in these bots to influence the quantity of tournaments happening in a given day, which that alone is crazy. So you're fabricating extra tournaments to try and get a few players to keep playing over and over again, and they say so that players can use their winnings to enter additional tournaments. Well, so it gets worse, because now we talk about the tailored bots, which are the other bots, and these are literally used to rig the game. It creates a predetermined outcome. By definition, rigging a game in gambling refers to the manipulation of the outcome of a contest to ensure a specific result. This is illegal activity. So therefore, controlling the scores of the players is literally, by definition, rigging a game. So what Papaya does in these sessions is they want to guarantee that the player comes out to a specific outcome, either win or lose, or the specific ranking of a user in a tournament. Therefore, in order to control the outcome, Papaya has to ensure that all other players outside the receiving player have to be bots, which is insane. It's insane because Papaya literally claims that you are matched with other players of similar skills, except these other players, quote unquote, are literally bots that are then programmed to force you into some sort of rigged position that by definition is gambling. But it's also just absolutely absurd that anyone would do this in the first place, because remember, they are taking a cut of the tournament fee already, and it's a huge cut as well. So the fact that then they have to go and rig the game as well, like, this is so insane. Okay, so then they allegedly tell complaining customers hundreds of times, we do not use bots. Well, that's a lie. We know that that's a lie. And in fact, they instructed their customer service to escalate complaints to management if they said bot or AI. Essentially, they end up banning people and closing people's accounts due to their complaints about using bots. During the period in which Papaya used bots, like, it is undisputed. Like, there's no question about this. This is not what the trial is about. We already know for certain Papaya did indeed use bots, but what Skills is now claiming is that Skills saw a decrease in market share while Papaya stole their skill-based real money users. So Skills is initiating this action on the basis that Papaya stole users, stole their money, and they specifically stole it from Skills' legitimate real money skill-based market. During discovery, Papaya did not respond to any questions, asserting their Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. And this happened back in 2024, so this has been going on for a long time. So this is also why we only know up until 2023. Skills has been acquiring information up till the end of 2023, and since then has not admitted any new information into this particular lawsuit. Though I am sure that Papaya has continued to have illegal activity. So Papaya tries a couple different tactics here to avoid getting sued. One of them is that they say that Skills just, they don't have any evidence, you know? Papaya didn't lie by saying that they use no bots, which the court rules that their advertisements are likely to mislead or confuse consumers. Which is true. So then Papaya tries to claim that, well, okay, but maybe we never clarified exactly what we meant, you know? Our advertisements are susceptible to more than one interpretation, so like, it can't literally be false because maybe people just misunderstood it. And the court ends up saying that no, Skills has in fact shown that a reasonable juror may find that Papaya's statements were literally false. Papaya's claims that its tournaments are fair and skill-based and only between players and individuals who are over the age of 18. I haven't looked into that one yet. That gets into a whole new can of worms, but it has no vested interest, you know, no bots or anything, doesn't profit on who wins, and the court rules that this is definitely untrue. Papaya 100% lied. So it is undisputed that it deployed bots across its games when it claimed that it did not. Some bots were just liquidity, other bots entered games so that Papaya could control the result of the tournament. That's just insane. Like, that alone is lawsuit worthy, which is why then we have the civil lawsuit where they're trying to get reparations for all of this bot buffoonery. So a reasonable jury could find that their statements were false, and even false by implication, because a consumer in the real money skill-based gaming market would unambiguously conclude from Papaya's statement that its games only involve human players. So it keeps on, Papaya keeps on trying to argue that they're entitled to all these different judgments because, it's like, we're not literally lying, so we don't have to argue against this. And this argument fails. So then they pull out this doctor who reports on Papaya that, so maybe gambling plays a role in Solitaire Cash, but they conclude that skill plays just a greater role than the chance factor in the outcome of a tournament, regardless of bot usage. And so they claim even if admissible, that, well, if you're a skill-based player, that has more of an effect than the literal rigging of the game. Which then, at that point, why would you rig the game at all? And of course, the court rules that this is ridiculous. Because then it is undisputed that Papaya used Taylor bots to control the outcome of tournaments. So in a controlled outcome, skill plays no role, which is the whole point. So this doctor is absolutely absurd, and this report is bogus. And they say, so by introducing tailored bots, Papaya could prevent players from winning, no matter how they performed in the game. Finally, the final argument that Papaya uses is that it has no vested interest, and it doesn't profit on tournament outcomes, which basically has a witness claim who stated that Papaya makes less money in sessions with bots because bots don't pay entry fees. Yeah, that's kind of an issue. So then what does Papaya do? They rig it. They rig the tournament so that they make back their money that they would have gotten if they just had a real player instead of bots. So then they have these other doctors that come in and they give these reports that, oh, no. Human players received more than we did, basically. And in fact, due to the use of Papaya's bots, people earned more money. And basically the court says this is not a good enough argument. Like, this is not sufficient. So again, they go on, they argue a bit more about whether or not they deliberately deceived people, which I think is pretty clear. And in fact, and the court rules that Skills has presented sufficient evidence in which a jury could conclude that Papaya deliberately and intentionally sought to deceive customers. So then they give an example of a user complaint about bots, which Papaya denies the existence of. So as an example, a player asked, "Is every single player I play against in a tournament a real player, or are there computers playing at times?" Papaya responds to clarify that we do not use bots or computer players, and that if it were possible to control tournaments manually, it would not be fair to other players. Yes, that is true. It would not be fair at all. That's why they're being sued. They also then terminated some of these users. And in fact, management refers to a user who complained as smelling like trouble. They probably said, the actual quote's probably, yeah, this user smells like trouble. Like, imagine saying that about a customer. And then they instructed customer service to close the account with a statement that just avoids saying anything at all. They instructed representatives to raise with management any complaints that talked about bots. And in fact, they critique an employee, saying that one of them displayed poor judgment by keeping an open account of a consumer who complained about bots and demanded a refund. Which is the rational thing to do when you've been scammed. When you're playing a real money skill-based game and you figure out that it's not skill-based, but it's still real money, I would demand a refund as well. Well, what they say is that you actually should have just closed their account. Well, that's a brilliant thing to do. If someone complains and they want a refund, we'll just terminate their account and they can't ask for a refund anymore. They had an internal policy of removing posts on its Facebook group that mentioned bots. Like, all of these are egregious commercial misconduct. Some other great quotes are that Papaya was misaligned with its public statements, and so customers were confused. And then, this is the best part too, Papaya responds to an email asking about real players, and then Papaya says, oh, no, the platform has real players, but you see there's these rare cases where other players use automated systems. That's why there's bots. So then in a way, they're actually saying there are bots. But then they don't have bot detection. So then, oh my gosh. So recognizing that consumers noticing bots on the platform was a growing issue. Yeah, people are figuring you out. They're onto you. And it impacts trust in their fairness. Yes. Well, then Papaya executives modified its bots' performance to make bot profiles appear more human. so that fewer users would detect their usage going forward. That's so insane. So not just using bots, but then when people were onto them, they just got clever and they tried to hide it. And so an employee says, well, while understanding the need for bots, the margin of their winnings should be smaller and less obvious to our players. The first part of that statement, though, I don't understand the need for bots. What is the need for bots? While understanding the need for bots, please help me understand. What is the need for bots when you're already making money on each tournament? You could run a legitimate tournament system and still have a profitable business model. A reasonable juror could conclude that in crafting its advertising and describing its platform, Papaya intentionally sought to deceive its customers about its employment of bots, and I couldn't agree more. Okay, so then Papaya tries to go on, and they basically end up claiming, no, we actually never said this. You see, no. Customer support, when they said that, oh, Papaya doesn't use bots, that was an unfortunate mistake. I honestly don't understand what this statement means, because there's a witness who states that in instances where Papaya told customers that it doesn't use bots, he calls this an unfortunate mistake. I'm not sure what this means because potentially the witness is claiming that Papaya does use bots and they should have been forthright about it. So then claiming that hiding it was an unfortunate mistake, which it is. But then Papaya's executives do not agree with that. So they invoked their Fifth Amendment privilege and they just remained silent. They argue a lot more back and forth, but Skills ends up bringing in this internet survey of people who were playing Papaya's games, and basically half of the respondents indicated that they believed that the game used solely human players. Essentially, they put it to the test, and they said, okay, Papaya, if you're saying that you weren't misleading players, let's see how misleading your statements really are. So they construct a mock-up of a App Store profile or description that, reads as such: Solitaire Cash makes sure to match players against other opponents with similar skill level to ensure fun and fair experience for everyone. You'll be matched with other players within the same skill level, da-da-da-da-da. As a result of reading that description, 60% of respondents indicated that they thought the game only included human players. Even if it was less than 50%, the fact that a large portion of people seem to believe that Papaya's games are human only, seems to indicate that they did a really good job at deceiving people into believing that they don't use bots. And of course, Papaya rejects this and they go, oh, no, this experiment was stupid and it didn't do anything. But then they don't explain what kind of experiment should have been done in place of it. They criticize the reliability of the survey, but then the judge goes, but the survey was good. It made sense. Otherwise, testing responses to statements that Papaya didn't use would not be useful. So they literally copied Papaya's own statements, and then Papaya's like, no, you need to do a different study. How does that make any sense? But it gets worse because then they do another study where they basically ask their real money skill-based users if they would continue to play if they were informed that some of the opponents were bots. They did a control experiment where half of them were asked if they would continue and half were asked if they would stop, so that they weren't influencing it one way or the other. Those who were asked if they would continue, 51% conceded, they would quit. Whereas those who were asked if they would stop, 66% would quit. Point is, more than half of people would quit if they found out that they were playing against bots. In both cases, people don't want to play against bots in a skill-based game. How, duh. So then that's what they say. Regardless of how the question is phrased, a significant number of respondents show a propensity to cease playing. I love that. A propensity to cease playing when they learned that there were bots in the game. And of course, Papaya has a contention. And they say, no, it's inadmissible. We can't use this report at all. It doesn't measure the materiality of consumers. It has no basis on real money, skill-based games at all. Meanwhile, the court basically goes, nah, the survey's admissible, so it works. Okay, and then finally, okay, so get this. Finally, Papaya argues that bots are so ubiquitous. That means they're everywhere in the industry that consumers just fully expect them to be deployed anyway. Like, oh my gosh. So we have come all the way to the very base level, at which point Papaya's given up. They've torn off the mask. And they're like, yeah, screw it. We use bots. Get over it. Everybody uses bots. I can't freaking believe this. And it explains that its decision to not disclose its use of bots, which it is like, now at this point they've given up. They use bots. Its use of bots. They use bots. We know it. They're admitting it. Well, they're saying that it's in line with just industry practice. And basically, the court's like, nah. Papaya then argues that skills just, there's no injury, you know, they didn't do skills any damage, they're wrong. Basically, the judge rules that skills sufficiently showed that Papaya hurt them in the real money skill-based market. And there's literally like an inverse relationship with Papaya's growth in the market share in 21 and skills decline in market share. Like, if you were to graph it, it's probably a straight line, like one going up and the other going exactly down. And here's the best part, though. The actual damages that skills suffered was over $650 million, basically. And that Papaya was unjustly enriched that exact amount. To which point Papaya moves to exclude. They just don't want it. They're like, can we please like not have this? And that motion is denied. Okay, so they go into like extreme detail about how this guy calculated the damages. And basically it comes down to Papaya's additional profits from its use of bots are around 700 million, which is insane. But regardless, what we get out of them kind of disputing this whole bot, like this whole damages calculation, is that Papaya has now disclosed its use of bots. Like, incidentally, because they're like, no, your calculations are wrong. We didn't make that much money. They end up saying, well, this is how much money we actually made from using bots. So now, like, they've disclosed that they use bots. So guess what? Papaya uses bots in Solitaire Cash. It's official. It's funny that this is the longest section and it has to do with money. Like, Papaya's really doubling down on, like, we don't want to pay that 700 million back. However, the court ends up ruling that this calculation is reliable, and it's sufficiently reliable, so they're gonna include it in the trial so far. Yeah, and then that's basically the end of the lawsuit. So then we have the final page here with the signature of the United States District Judge. Yeah, so that's about it. But now there's this ridiculous act of retaliation from Papaya Gaming. So now they're trying to countersue Skills, basically saying that no, Skills also uses bots, and they're just posing as a virtuous crusader for fairness. But they're hypocrites. Which is like, it's so absurd that, like, first they denied it happening, right? And they said that they never used bots. Then they said, okay, well, bots don't affect the game that much. And then they say, no, you use bots too, so shut up, basically. Like, oh my gosh, this is so ridiculous. And then the fact that Stephen A. Smith is involved in all of this, it says that days after the court ruling on October 27th, it was November 3rd that Stephen A. Smith announced a partnership with Papaya. Like, talk about poor timing. Like, it could not get worse for Papaya Gaming. So, anyway, if you still play Solitaire Cash at this point, if you know anyone who plays Solitaire Cash, please tell them to stop. We have to get the word out. This is a horrible gambling app. It's deceptive. It takes advantage of people. Please delete it off of your phone. Tell people about it. Spread the word. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time.